for leading with pride for the LGBTQ community and is a member of Rainbow Toastmasters Club. He is also a winner of Mr. Gay India 2019 and has been featured in the Outstanding 100 LGBT plus Future Leaders list. He's an ardent supporter of the transgender community, and he is working on trans inclusion in the corporate space. He also does his bit to spread awareness about queer issues, mental health issues in the LGBTQ community, HIV, and drug abuse. We then have Nishant. He's a co-head at Periphery. Periphery is working towards creating employment and upskilling opportunities for the transgender community. And Nishant looks after transgender recruitment and inclusion. Nishant is enthusiastic about business development, customer relationship management, and devising strategic growth for any businesses. His interest also lies in creating sustainable waste management solutions. He joined Periphery in 2018, and till date, Periphery has skilled more than 350 and have created jobs for over 170 trans persons. They've also sensitized more than 22,000 corporate employees through their sensitization initiative. Last, we have Jitendra, who works as a program manager with Nazaria, a queer feminist resource group based out of Delhi. Jitendra is a social legal researcher, and they have previously worked with organizations like All India Women's Conference, Beyond I, Public Health Institute, the YP Foundation, and Hidden Pockets on a variety of issues like climate change and gender, sexual and reproductive health and rights, etc. Before we start the discussion, I'm just going to request everybody to please keep yourself on mute. Do put your questions in the chat box. We will be taking up questions in the end, right? So before much ado, I'm just going to jump right into the conversation. And I'm going to start the conversation by asking all our panelists to share some examples of sexual harassment that cisgender men and people from LGBTQ community faced at the workplace. Nishant, I'm going to start with you, and then Jitendra, I would like you to share your thoughts. So Nishant, over to you.
So I'm really sorry. I actually dropped out of the call because I was not able to hear anyone.
Okay.
Catch you. So I'm really sorry about
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So do you want me to repeat the question?
Yes.
Okay. So our first question is, we want all our panelists to share some examples of sexual harassment that cisgender men, as well as people from LGBTQ community, they face in the workplace. And I wanted to start this discussion with you, with the audience, if you can explain the audience that you work with, and also share some examples of sexual harassment.
Sure. So, hi, my name is Nishant and I work for Periphery. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. And I'm really grateful to be here. Secondly, coming to the question, right? Yeah, a lot of folks specifically from the transgender community face a lot of sexual harassment, and it doesn't just start at the workplace. It starts at a much younger age. In a very, say, at the age of 10 to 12, right? They start realizing that they're a little different than everyone else. And it starts off with their family members itself abusing them. Then slowly it moves to the schools where not just their people who are studying with them, but also the teachers, right? I remember a person telling me a story where their teacher was their biggest harasser and fostering that as well, like making fun of the way that person was walking, making fun of the way that the person was dressing up and things like that. She was the one who was promoting and forcing other people to harass that person, making jokes about them and things like that. There are a lot of instances where these things happen in a workplace, specifically before the transition, where when a person is really at a very vulnerable state. This person is always looking for support. However, the need for support is always misused. Things like this keep happening. And I can also share, say, an experience that one of our very close partners shared with us. He's a trans man and he's working for a very reputed firm in Bangalore currently. However, before this, he was working abroad in a country where LGBT folks were criminalized. And the people above above them, right? Above that person. Most of them being women, they abuse their power. So abuse their power, sexually harass this person, didn't give this person the chance to get their visa extended and things like that, just because this person was from the community. So it just goes to show that people who have the power to do it will definitely do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter which background you come from or where you come from. If you have that power, if you have that leverage over someone else, you will definitely end up doing it.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, John, for sharing this. Jitendra, like, I would like now want you to jump in and share, your experiences, your thoughts in terms of, people that you're working with, and if you can share some of those experiences.
Yeah. Thank you, Prerna, and thank you for this opportunity. I am Jatinder. I use they and them pronoun, and I work with an organization called Nazaria, a queer feminist resource group based out of Delhi. So as you rightly pointed out, so if you look at the idea of sexual harassment, it's even with the legal sense or the social sense, you would see that there is a man who's harassing all the women, and then women needs protection. And there is a long historical movement or feminist movement, women's group coming together and fighting right after the Bhavri Devi movement and some movement before that as well. So you would see that this kind of an idea, which is very binary, has been there, and it still exists in binaries with the idea that the harassment can only happen between man and women.
Right.
And you would see, because the space is so strict, there is rarely any space for any person, especially if you're from LGBTQIA community. Because I think before 377 judgment, people would rarely talk about LGBTQIA issue in terms of issues, rather than they would just talk about either you would see in cinema, them being or us being very, part of the joke or something like that. So even if you see cinema, especially in Hindi film cinema, you would see how harassment is being played out as a joke to them. So if a hero harasses or passes a sexually colored remark on a person who's square on screen, it's passed off as a funny joke, and that sort of shows a lot what happens in the social sphere. Especially in the university spaces, you would see that people who are feminine, who are gender non-conforming, who are non-binary, who are trans, who are not heterosexual, would get these remarks, these harassment on a daily basis. And that sort of also like comes into the workspace, because there is no magic wand that, oh, I have joined a job and now I'm gonna be I'm not going to harass anyone. I'm going to be this woke person, irrespective of the policies in place. And that sort of translates into the workspaces where queer people are talked about their looks, how they walk. So if you're a queer feminine person, even in a corporate space, or especially if you're in a government space, there are no safety mechanisms for you to address that if there are no policies. The jokes will always pass around, which in otherwise, in a binary sense, if those remarks are made by a man and a woman, would come under sexual harassment. But for LGBT people, they would just be like a joke, or the casualness about it. And I think that's the most important bit about, and this is why I like sort of like try to share a little bit of history while sharing my opinions and my experience, is also that LGBTQI lives are much different, and our experiences are very different than heterosexual people. Even in terms of the idea of consent, you would see consent being thrown around, say that, oh, yes means yes and no means no. But for the queer people, it's much more diverse, it's much more complex. It's very long history behind what does it mean to, exist as a queer person even without the technology, because India is still not all of us in India have telephones, or not all of us have internet or something like that. So you would see that it's a very much different kind of a life, and that usually happens in workspaces. Many times, people would question, and sometimes they come across as the curiosity with if someone is feminine. The question would be like, oh, why are you so feminine? Why are you wearing nails? Why are you, behaving like in a way? Why are you walking like in a way? And then slapping someone's butt, or putting hands on someone's shoulder, or doing that. And it's not just that only men do it. A lot of time women also do it, and these are some of the incidents that come across. But there is literally, I could not come across any report or study that would say that these are the kind of sexual harassment that are happening, because a lot of time they go underreporting, because when you're LGBTQ person in a workspace, your key aim is to get a dignified life and get income.
Yeah.
You want money to run your house, your people relying on you. So rather than creating a trouble and being this, because you're already like outed in front of everyone. So if
Right.
such a case happens, chances of other people jumping on you and saying that, oh, you're a bad employee are much
Right.
higher than other people, anyone else.
Right.
So these sort of anxieties around workspaces also make people not report the harassment that happens. And these are many of the cases that we come across when we talk about, and I think in latest, much later, we will get into that.
Right, right. Thank you so much, Jitendra, for talking about this. In fact, when we are talking about data, when I was researching for this, I couldn't find a lot of data. So I was looking at global, information. And in fact, like I was reading this Forbes article, which talked about how majority of LGBTQ women in UK are going back in the closet, because when they first join their first job, they feel uncomfortable reporting issues to the HR, and they're also struggling with male dominated and a heteronormative environment. So thank you so much for bringing this. Suresh, you have been in a corporate setup for a really long time. So in your experience, what have been some of the common instances of sexual harassment which are faced by cisgender men and persons from LGBTQ community? And I also want to ask you, do you think that they particularly vulnerable because of their sexual identity and sexual orientation?
All right, great. First and foremost, thank you so much, Prerna and team, for inviting me. This is really nice. And to everybody who's joined in on a Saturday, so great. So this is mean that something is very personal and y'all are really committed to this. I also was looking through the list of people. There are some men also. So thank you so much for joining in, all the men, to get to really learn and understand. Now, coming to the question that you asked, Prerna. Now, with regarding to cisgendered men, I think everybody thinks that men don't get harassed,
Right.
and especially sexually, right? In a workplace, it does happen, and it is, quite similar to how women face harassment. Now, when women are in a position of power, they use that opportunity, be it in sexual favors or lewd remarks, and if the man is quite pleasing to the eyes, then it gets even more. uh, I would like to talk on a brief level that, to a couple of my acquaintances have also said that they have gotten sexually harassed by their women colleagues who are in position of power, asking them for sexual favors to proceed and to go further. And they kind of laugh at it also that, come on, you're getting to enjoy and have fun, and why not go forward with it? And don't think of reporting it, then people are going to undermine you as your man, as your manliness is going to be questioned. And even when instances have happened like this with the men, when they try to have conversations with their other male colleagues in confidentiality, it has again been snubbed off, saying that, dude, what's the harm? You're having fun again, right? So why do you want to make it a big issue out of it? So this takes the people much, much more closeted, is what I would say. I don't want to say closeted, but much more deep into the whole personal issue that they're going through. Now,
Right.
they can't report it, they can't bid their frustration out, and it's affecting them mentally, physically as well, and it's affecting their work. Right? They're not able to come into their work being 100% sure that they would not be harassed today.
Right.
Right? Men are again, when you call this out, they're saying, like, be a man, take some take some decisions on this, say things back. And for some reason it doesn't, because I feel that it is quite similar to how when men in power use this position against women, probably they have commitments towards their family, be it their, spouses, kids, or even be it with their parents. And that there's home loans, all of that comes into picture. And with a lot of, how do I say this? With a lot of issues around the corporate world where there is layoffs happening every now and then, and you really don't know what reasons. And the reasons are also not clear as to why you're getting laid off, right? So they all suck it up and they say, you know what, I have to move on because I have these commitments and I can't really do anything. With regarding to LGBTQ plus people, thanks Nishant and Jitendra have also shared some of these instances. Personally, also, it just gets rubbed off as a joke, or they say, "Hey, I was joking. It's not something that I meant." And the fact that, again, if you're good looking, or if you're pleasing to the eyes, is what I would say, then you get caught on more, right? Be it with men or with women, and they always come up and say things, various things, where you are like taken aback. I'm like, are you saying that at me, or are you hitting on me, or are you making me feel crappy about myself, right? So even with messages also there have been, and I would call out for the fact that especially effeminate gay men, right, who have feminine characteristics are being called out a lot more. With COVID coming in, it becomes even more difficult, knowing that they are, probably from the LGBTQ plus community, or they have certain characteristics, or they assume that they are from the community. They get sidelined in some of these conversations. Now, with everything being virtual, you have to set up meetings, you have to have conversations. Now they kind of get aloof, right? They're not being called into certain meetings where decisions have to be made. They're not being called into team meetings, understanding or knowing that, this person may not be able to contribute, or we really don't want to have them. Now, COVID has also brought in that furtherness of people that they really don't want to be associated with, right? Because you really can't know where the team is going, how the team is playing. They all can say, I'm in a meeting, but meeting with whom? You really don't have to answer that, right? So, and this is having a lot of mental health issues with the people from the LGBTQ plus community as well,
Right.
because they're all of a sudden sidelined and they are just doing the regular job, but there are no updates coming in. And there are certain updates as required, but not everything, right? So sexual harassment, if you talk about it, yes, face to face, a lot of it happens, but I think in the virtual world, it's becoming a different kind of harassment of very underlying undertone harassment that is being played on.
Right. Thank you so much, Suresh, for that. And, this is something that we have been anyways talking about it since the start of the pandemic, in terms of, how sexual harassment has just moved from an office setup to a virtual environment. And the
Right.
way it has just progressed, it's just crazy. And, like in the beginning, when I was talking about the numbers, we don't have any numbers of, at least, within the context of India, we don't know what the number of men, or for example people from LGBTQ community who are facing sexual harassment, how many of them, what is the number, or how many of them even come forward and are filing a complaint. In fact, like, we were also, when we started planning for the panel discussion, we wanted to bring voices of people who have experienced, even if they are willing to talk about it anonymously, but we couldn't find anyone. So my question to all of you is, so what's the likelihood of somebody from, say, an LGBTQ community or cisgender men actually coming forward and filing a complaint? And along with some of the challenges that Suresh has already mentioned, what other biases and challenges do you think that they are facing, or they are likely to face, if they were to suppose even come forward with their complaint? And Jitendra, I'm going to start with you in terms of, with the LBT group, what are your thoughts on this?
Yep, thank you so much, Prerna, for this question. And I was also just thinking about a lot about these biases that comes. So, the problem with the data that happens, because a lot of policies are formed when there is data available, but what happens when there is no data? And I think that a lot that was happened, like why we don't, and we are still struggling to have discrimination and bullying or anti-bullying laws for LGBT persons in India. It also seems like, especially in the legal conversations, that LGBTQI people exist in like some random island, and you need to go and hunt for them. The continuous assumption is that the policies need to be in place when you know that a certain number of people are existing. But the thing with the sexuality is that it's not as active as it might people might would like to see them. It's not as that. Sexuality is passive. Gender identities can be passive. So it's very much complex, and a lot of that comes from the lack of knowledge that people don't have about LGBT people, and that's where the biases also stem from. Many of the biases include like someone has filed for sexual harassment complaint. The question would be like, oh, but you're already, because the idea is that, especially with the gay men, that, they're already very quote unquote sexually promiscuous. So they would like, oh, but you're already sexually promiscuous. What's the harm in it? And then also like when people don't take you seriously. So for a lot happens with the trans people at workspaces, the people tend to not to take them very seriously because this kind of curiosity and this kind of idea that people have worked with them. So the idea is that, oh, whatever their experiences are, we don't understand, we don't know whether this person is saying truth, or if this person is just keep on making excuses to fend off the work. All these kind of biases come from, and I think many biases also come from the fact that because if a class is really vulnerable in workspaces, and when there are no laws or any policies within the organization don't exist, the biases also come like, why do we have to do this work with this new community? We already have laws for women in our spaces. Why do we need more policies or laws for these people? And I think the kind of people take it as like the extra work and think that, oh, we don't know who are. So especially, for example, organization who have transgender people working for them, you will see that there will still be a little bit of attempt to introduce anti-discrimination laws, or expand the idea of women in the organizational policies. But spaces where transgender people are not working, the idea is that if no one has come out and said and put a tag on the forehead that I'm from LGBT or LBT groups, that means we don't need the law. And I think that's what needs to be tackled a bit more harsher, so that we don't get into this idea that someone has to be visible, only then there will be some laws. And that's the problem with the data, and why people don't report, and why there is a lot of relying that comes across, that if there is no data, that means there is no law. But the thing is that with LGBT people, many of them don't want to come out. It's a really huge task to come out and then being able to be productive in your workspace, and also like the kind of questions people would receive. So if I would come out as something in my workspace, people will not say that, oh, can you finish this particular task? But people's question would immediately turn around, oh, how is it? So what are the basic questions about LGBT people? Because now everyone thinks that now this person is going to enlighten me uh, about every single bit, and
Yeah.
that's also becomes like a tedious task for someone to do in a heterosexual organization, or an organization which is not working for LGBTQIA issue, who don't have this information. So I think those biasness needs to be tackled, and more than normalization, the conversation needs to be more casual than becoming this kind of an events within the organization, where if someone has come out now, person has to enlighten, and person needs to know everything. I think this is why I think underreporting we have already discussed, and because of the tasks, and another layer is about this tediousness of having to represent the entire community in your own organization. It's a tedious task, and at the end of the day, you just want to do your work, have a career growth. So the aspirations are same, the feelings are same. It's just because someone comes to the community, the added layers of challenges that sort of like comes on person, they're like they comes into this multifold kind of an idea.
Right. True, absolutely. And Nishant, like here, I would like you to share in terms of, I know when it comes to transgender persons, the situation becomes extremely tough, So we want you to shed some light on what some of these challenges are, not only at the organizational level, but also when it comes to, for example, say reporting to the police, So if you can shed some light there.
So, okay, this is with all the experiences that people have shared with me, basically, and what I genuinely feel at a very human level, right? A lot of them are really fearful that what might happen next. I want to go complain, I want to file a complaint, but what might happen next? Because there's no social security if you're a person from the LGBTQ, especially from the transgender community. The fear of being judged, the fear of people telling you that the fault might be on your end and not on the other person's end. So those kind of biases are even prevailing today, and people generally have a stereotype when it comes to transgender people and sexual harassment. Even the people that I have personally spoken with, they have gone to the police station to file harassment complaints. However, uh, the cops don't take them seriously. they they'll be like, this is the kind of work that you're involved in, and this is what your life will be like. They've been spoken to in that way. And in terms of percentage, I don't know what population of LGBTQ percentage people file or even have troubles in doing so. But in terms of transgender folks, right, if I've spoken to 10 people, out of them have not gone and filed the complaint. So that just shows that 9 out of 10 people are not going to file because they have that fear of being judged. They have the fear of having no social security. And in terms of support groups also, right, um, when a cisgender woman or a cisgender man is going and filing a complaint, uh, they might have a lot of folks that are supporting them. But a trans person, a person specifically from the LGBTQ community, do not have that support, do not have that
Right.
say there'll be 100 people who will come and join me if I'm going to file a complaint. But that will not be the case, because there is a feeling that I have a right which is superior to other people. This is my right to go and file the complaint. But if the other person is doing the same thing, that right is not valid, basically, is what we're trying to put up. So
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Nishant. Suresh, from your experience, again, like in the corporate setup, especially, like, what do you think is the percentage of, say, men and people from LGBTQ community filing a sexual harassment, complaint at work? Also, what hinders them from coming forward and filing a complaint? Also, do you think there are repercussions for them, for speaking out?
All right. So again, I'm just going to be taking up on what Nishant and Jitendra have said. See, from a perspective of data, we really don't have. There are very few bold cisgendered men and gay men who come out and really have these conversations. Very few. Now, we don't have actual reports like data per se. I think that is a good start for you all to kind of get that conversation going, right? Because as per the POSH law, you need
Yeah.
to report out. There is a
Right.
mandate by the government of India that you need to report out. And it's only cases which are against women, right?
Right.
It doesn't categorically say you have to do any
Right.
cases, right?
Right.
So with that being said, corporates or workspaces are going to be like, okay, so it's only against women, we will do,
Right.
and say if it's none, then it's none. That's pretty much it. Now, with regarding to the biases and all the other issues that are coming up, I think it's quite similar to how Jitendra and Nishant have said, and it's also pretty much similar to how women go through that. The repercussions are like, I would like to quote this. I was just waiting for an opportunity to talk about this. OTT, if you all have seen with Pooja Bhatt, right, the Bombay Begums,
Right.
the way they have really spoken, I think that is a true indication in a lot of sense. I know there has been a lot of backlash coming out from the posh people and saying that this is not the right way, this is the wrong way, but in a lot of places this is what happens, right? Even be it from people from the LGBTQ plus community or cis men who are coming out there and having this conversation out there. They say, oh, what are you doing? Why do you want to mess up your career, the other person's career, and look at the future that you can really have another couple of years, right? So when they get into such conversations or such situations, they are like taken aback, they're shocked, or they don't know what to do. They're frozen, right? The characters really resembled everybody actually in that series. But in reality, also, there's another thing that happens. Some of the cisgendered men, again, if they don't have any commitments, all they do is keep quiet, look for another job, and walk out.
Hmm. True.
That's how what keeps
Yeah.
happening, hoping that the next organization is not going to be like this. But they're going to be so much of uh, cautious. They're going to be so cautious of everything that they do that they may going to hamper even their career as well in the long run. The same goes for LGBTQ plus people. They're hoping that, oh my God, I hope somebody's not going to find out that I'm gay
Hmm.
or I'm a lesbian or I'm queer. Again, queer people, again, there is, they come out and they are wanting to be themselves, but they're very scared. right? Trans people, again, because of the appearance, they do come out there. So, the visibility is not there. A lot of the, lesbian, gay, bi, I forgot the bi people, we forget most of the times about them, but they're still there, right? But then they go deeper into the closet in the workplace because of this situation. They've had instances at the first one that leaves a big, big scar on them, and they will start questioning everybody around them. Is this person going to harass me or not? Is this going to person, say something and harass? So their workplace or their work is really going to take a beating.
True.
And that is a sad state because we really don't talk about mental health issues. And they get into that kind of depression, be it in any form. Then they start depending on alcohol or drugs, to just keep themselves sane.
Right.
And also, there is a lot of community space as well, but they will still say, suck it up. And then, you need to earn your bread and butter. Otherwise, how are you going to live? Right. So there's a lot of, like what Nishant said, there is no social support in that form. And because of which, there are people who have gone into even worst case scenarios trying to kill themselves as well. And a lot of men do that when they are not able to go through this process or handle it, because we've never been taught to handle such situations. There's lack of awareness also around this. Like, it's only about, yes, women have to report if there's any sexual harassment case, if you're sexually harassed. But what about men? We don't talk about this because it's assumed that, okay, men can handle it, or men can suck it up and go forward and move past this, right? So in a workplace, it's not easy, but it does happen. I think, more and more conversations around this and having awareness is, I think, the key aspect. But also the fact that, you spoke about you asked me that what are the challenges. I think the challenges, again, we are coming, people are who working in organizations, they are from this society, they are from this country. When this country largely thinks something different, that men have to, be manly and, be able to handle everything, that's the same attitude that they bring in even in workplace. Right. So it is a systemic change that has to happen. And I think ever since Section 377 has been kind of removed by the Supreme Court of India, the conversations have started. And now, I think the cisgendered men also have something to piggyback on, saying that, hey, now if LGBTQ plus people can also be harassed, then, please include us also in some of those conversations. You've never taken us seriously. Now is the time for you all to take us seriously, and we are getting harassed. So can you start having those conversations?
Right. Thank you so much, Suresh, for this. And in fact, like before I move on to, what are the changes that we can, what advice and what changes the organizations can do, I think I have a question for all of you in terms of, I know POSH law recognizes only women as a complainant. Yeah. So, and it's open to all three of you. What kind of recourse, legal or otherwise, is available to them in case they are sexually harassed at work and the organization doesn't take any action? Are there any recourses for them?
No, honestly speaking, not that I am aware of any. I am genuinely not aware of this. I would like for the other two people to enlighten me actually on this.
Yeah. I wanted to bring this out there, in your experience, if, have you come across, so, yeah.
So, I mean, just to kind of get the question understanding, Prerna, is that what about, our cisgendered men and people from the LGBTQ plus community have some sort of opportunity to report? Right. And if they report, is there any legal course?
Are there any opportunities for them to, say, go out of the organization in case the organization doesn't do anything? Right.
As of now, I mean, even outside workplace, there is nothing, to be honest. In certain workplaces, there are, but even if you have to go report a police complaint, the cops are always going to be laughing it out, like how Jitendra said, it's, and Nishant have said, for the trans people, this is how your life is going to be. You have to suck it up and live with it. And some of them make jokes about it. Again, the mindset, you have to be manly enough to handle this. What, right. I mean, are you not that manly to take up something that a woman says, right? Or can't you give it back, or things like that.
Yeah.
So when society at large outside is like not accepting, so it is really difficult, and it's not
So,
there.
yeah, I just wanted to put this out there.
And also,
Before, I think there are, sorry, Jitendra, you were saying something.
yes, I was saying that because when you're talking about going outside the legal framework of POSH, I think one of our, for example, at Nazaria, we do recognize sexual harassment with non-cisgender women as well. So people, because it's an organization that's being run by not, it's run by queer people. So our sexual harassment policy, which is organizational based,
Right.
they have that space. And I think that's something that organizations can do, and I think legal framework allows for that you can frame your own policies. So with the organization that are working on and if they have sexual harassment policy, they can expand the idea of women, they can add other persons in their own policy. So at least if I'm working in an organization, I know that okay, if A has harassed me, I know that the first recourse I can take is go and file a complaint against this person in under within the organization. Yes, outside legal, I'm not sure how is it gonna play out, because other than POSH, we also have various sexual assault laws in IPC, but that's like a very different scenario and
Right.
different conversation altogether. Like, how will that play out? But yeah, but I think other than that, one recourse is definitely that you can within your organization can build on and can have conversations about the sexual harassment with anyone, irrespective of the gender or sexual orientation, is wrong. If one person is feeling such a way, there has to be a redressal mechanism in place. And also, I would like to highlight a little bit of that more than punishment, the aspect of punishment, then someone needs to be punished for their whatever the act has been done. More than that, because what does punishment do? Punishment just like stops the conversation and says that solution has been found. It's a eureka moment for everybody. But more than that, the idea is to have conversation, because it's a very new quote unquote layer that we have of LGBT person, and there are multiple complexities. And to understand that conversation should not end at the idea of punishment, it should be
Right.
expanded to, and have more conversation, because it's really complex and people
Yeah,
still get really confused with the basic LGBT. And in many parts of a country, people don't even know the language
yeah,
of LGBT. They might know language of Kothi, they might know language of other. Many people understand LGBT as by taking a cab on the road or walking on the road and seeing Hijra community begging on the streets or doing Toli Badhai, and that's their idea of LGBT. So also to see that there is a lack of awareness that happens, and I think
True.
with recourse and by adding LGBT, the conversation needs to be expanded
Right.
more on that.
Right. No, thank you so much for this, Jitendra. And I'm going to basically jump into my last question to all three of you, because I can also see questions have started coming in.
yeah,
So with the, with the last bit, then we're going to jump right into the questions. So because Jitendra, you've already started the conversation on organizations are adopting a gender neutral POSH policies to start with. So my question is, what other steps organizations can take to provide support to people from LGBTQ community? I'm going to start with you, Jitendra, and then Nishant, then I'm going to come to you.
Thank you, Prerna. I think one of the most important thing, which is like very basic, is to like know what you're dealing with, right? So even if you need to buy a household item, you do a like lot of research before you do that. So even before the policies, before anything, is just like conversation needs to build up and understand what is LGBT, what are the different ways beyond LGBT within the transgender group. There are many identities. For example, I'm non-binary, and I find it really hard to explain to people who are just not ready to understand. So their end question would be, even if I've given a definition of non-binary, the question would become like, oh, but are you more effeminate, or are you more womanly, are you more manly, are you trans, like what exactly are you? And I think those questions needs to be dealt with, and those are like honest questions that people would have. So along with the conversation, people need to understand what LGBT, and at the same time, the idea of sexual harassment needs to be decoded and need to be understood in a much larger way. Right now, sexual harassment is that I felt uncomfortable, and something happened and this person did something to me and now I want to file. So with the women, the law provides you a list of, the kind of harassment that can happen. With LGBTQI person, the harassment is much wider. The sexual harassment can happen with the gays, can happen in different ways, because along with the harassment, there are ideas of intimacies as well. It's not like, and this is what a lot of time I don't like things about law. One of them is that how emotional less law can be, and how law can just assume that humans are basically just
Yes.
robots who understand either A and B, and there is no between A and B. And I think this is what needs to be also added, because that's a really huge part of LGBT. Otherwise, it would be forcing LGBT communities into the idea of heterosexualness or heteronormativity, where they're just assumed to take up roles of either understanding sexual harassment as a woman or understanding sexual harassment as a man, and that will not the serve and that will not serve the purpose. That will
Right.
just become people to just like, why am I need to, like, understand through someone else's lens? Why organization cannot understand sexual harassment through my own lens? And along with that, one more bit is also the ICs that have been formed, the internal complaints committees. They need to be trained as well. They need to, because they'll be dealing with a lot of these cases. They need to be trained not just on LGBT, but on the idea of gender and sexuality. Because in our schools we don't have sex education program, and whatever we have under Satya scheme is very basic. It's very much like, oh, you grow up, you get body hair, you get this and that, and that's the conversation that happens. Other than that, there is no conversation on sexuality and gender identities. And so I think that's really important to have that as a mandatory training for the IC. So then they're also much aware of these complexities. So when you get a case, you don't become like, oh my god, what is this happening? I don't understand any of this. Can we have an expert? Rather than we need to train ICs on different identities and sexuality and LGBTQI issues. And I think that will help us bring more conversations, rather than just saying that, oh, we don't have data and therefore we can't have laws, which should not be the, I mean, that's the premise of many policies, but that should not be it, because LGBT community don't um, don't fit into this kind of an idea.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Jitendra. Nishant, like I would like you to add in terms of with regards to transgender persons, what kind of support organizations can provide, to transgender persons who are working for them? If you can share something from your experiences, also what your advice will be for the organizations.
Sure. So I would like to start off with the challenges in the policies itself. So unfortunately, all the major companies, right, they're structured in a way where they direct all of these policies to the masses. So if they have 10,000 people working for them, they'll direct this policy which will benefit at least 9,000 people. But what we fail to understand is we have these policies in place. We have these gender neutral policies in place to support the minorities. The minorities are not involved in creating the policies. It's always the majority that is involved. So a lot of minority representation is what I feel is required. People genuinely who are from the community, who have been victims of this, should be involved in creating policies for this, is what I feel. And in terms of the support that the organization can provide, specifically for transgender people, there are a lot of physical cues that they could set up. They could provide infrastructural changes like providing a gender neutral washroom, have covering their transition. These are just a few things. But what personally I have seen is, if you just show them equal respect and acceptance, right? They don't generally care about any other thing. They just care about that acceptance. And um, this we have the lowest attrition because people are being accepted in the workplace. This could genuinely solve the problem of attrition. We need to look at each and every person that is being affected by these policies and create policies for that one person also, because that one person is also going to be a part of your family, right? You can't order pizza for nine of them and not order it for the 10th person. You will definitely need to feed that 10th person, correct, in your family. So that's the only thing that I want to say.
Yeah, thanks, Nishan. Like, great example. And Suresh, so I'm going to end with my last question with you. What are some measures that organizations are taking to create a truly inclusive workplace? And what will be your advice to the organizations who want to start on this journey? For example, what role do you think the leadership and the HR can play?
All right. So the first question, what are some of the things that organizations are already doing? I would say, again, there are two parts of kind of organizations here that I'm going to be talking about. One is multinational companies, and the other one are Indian-based companies, right? So multinational companies, what they do is, yes, there is a global policy, there is this global process that they need to adhere to. And now with the shift that is happening across the globe, now they are making their policies as well gender neutral, and which is inclusive of everybody, because now diversity and inclusion is the new talk of the town in the corporate workspace. So a lot of companies, multinationals, are doing that, wherein they are maybe they are forced or they're genuinely going out and saying, "Hey, we want our organization to be inclusive, so we are doing the right steps." Right? Even what Nishanta said, yes, making all the policies inclusive. Having for trans and non-binary people, we're having gender-neutral restrooms and including their surgeries as well, and all of that, including mental health benefits. Now, when you look at it from an Indian company perspective, they're still trying to understand this whole process, which is a struggle because they have their day-to-day work, and now there's something new that they need to be a part of. Otherwise, they're going to be left out. They're going to be called out by, people, publications, and all of that. So they are learning. So what I'm saying to say is that the journey has started, and some of the companies have gone way past, being inclusive, while some of them don't even know, right? What we are talking about is some of the cream of the creme, lot, which is again, the company names which are coming up are very well known. But what about the lesser known companies? They don't even talk about this. So I think I would encourage, so that's why I made a note here. Not only organizations need to step up this conversation of being inclusive, I think even as consultants, who are getting approached or who reach out to organizations should take a role in this. Basic things. If you want to talk about your posh conversations, all your posh conversations are only men, women. Why don't you include characters of people from the community, with the LGBTQ plus community? Bring in trans people. Even if your focal point is about a woman, why can't you bring trans people there? Trans women is also a woman, right? So why can't you bring them on board and say that, hey, it can be an issue for them as well? Right? So when you're making some of these guidelines, policies, and conversations, start being inclusive. Again, it's only man and woman that's shown everywhere. So I think one of the questions here is, how can gender mainstreaming plays vital role? It does. You need to characterize and show those characters that you really want to bring in, right? So I think that it plays a very, very vital role, I think, as consultants, because a lot of these organizations don't know what to do, like how you clearly asked, right? What do we do for organizations or companies who really want to start? Consultants are always the key point that they look out for, because they have a better hold and a better grip. So like what Jitendra and Nishant said, start being aware, start understanding what is happening around the your environment and what works best. I love this idea that Nishant said, bring in people from the underrepresented communities when you are making policies for them, right? I'm going to steal this, Nishant, from you, that you can't just feed 9 out of 10 people.
Right.
So the policies are going to be that. See, that is something that we need to hit. We need to start using very layman language, which can target and trigger that conversation, trigger that understanding in everybody. Now, when you say this, 9 out of 10 people, you can't leave one unfed, then they're like, oh, yeah, let's start thinking of others as well. Right. And how leaders and HR professionals can really play a role is when they start being inclusive. I think leadership teams and HR professionals need to be aware. They need to be sensitized around all these kind of issues. Though they are aware, do they walk the talk? Because now what I'm seeing is, as part of the DNI fraternity also, that a lot of leaders are attending conference and saying, yes, we're inclusive, but we don't see the walking the talk aspect. We still see them putting some women down, or not elevating somebody from the persons with disability process or the team or the group, and then LGBTQ plus people are still kind of not looked seriously, right? So I think it's a culture shift. Again, I'm going to say that I'm being very optimistic and positive with the fact that yes, we are in this change of movement, but at the same time, we have a population of 1.35 billion that we need to take along with us. Right? When you're going forward, you need to take everybody forward, and it does take time. True. And it's not easy because everybody have their own priorities, and we're all looking in different directions. To bring all of them in one direction, it takes time, but we are making that change. And I'm very hopeful with the millennials also coming in and breaking that whole myth. They're like, I don't want to be boxed as this person. I want to be, known as me, not on those boxes. So I think the millennials are also coming in, and I'm hoping that in a generation or two, they're going to just break away because the other ones are going to step into the leadership role. Right now they're questioning and breaking everything, and while people in position and power are like, oh my god, what are we really thinking? What is it that we need to step away from? Because the youngsters are questioning and we don't have answers to that. Right. So I think that change has already started. That change, the change of cycle or the change of wheel, the winds are changing slowly, has started. So I'm optimistic about that. And yeah, collectively be with an open mind, right? With a growth mindset is what I would say. I know these are all very big terms, but then it has a hidden meaning because you have to bring that from within. If I'm able to inspire at least 2 people out of this group, I think I've made my job done of having this conversation, right? So to all you out there, just be with an open mind and treat us as first and foremost, we're human beings, right? Just treat us with that respect. And then I think everything else takes that turn out there.
Thank you, Suresh, and thank you, everybody. I think, some really, really interesting and important points that have come in today. I know that we've been on YouTube Live as well, and I think there have been some questions. So I'm going to reach out to Shivangi. She is the president of Maharashtra ASH Council, and she's been supporting me in this. Has there been any questions, Shivangi, on the YouTube? I can see some questions here. We will take some of these questions, but are there any questions on the YouTube channel?
No, not really. So we can just continue with these questions.
Okay, so I know there is one question for Nishant from Wicci. From an organization near Valluvar Kottam in Chennai, a lot of male employees have reported that they don't feel safe when they leave their office late at night. As there are transgender people outside who have been harassing them at night, what can be done? Nishant, anything that you want to add here?
Yeah, definitely. So this also happens, and I'm not going to say that it doesn't happen, but there are NGOs and CVUs that make sure that these sort of events are not happening, and we can definitely reach out to them. What I can advise you to do is you can reach out to me directly, and I will personally speak to the NGOs and even understand if these people are actually trans, because a lot of folks just act like they're trans for the sake of making money. And we have seen that even people reaching out to us, like a few of them definitely do not show the traits of being trans. So we have a proper assessment in place. We have our own community partners who help us with this verification of things. So we can definitely help you out over there. You can reach out to me directly, and the email is also available on our website if you require it.
Yeah,
great.
I think just to add to that, I think I really harassing can anybody, can everybody with a show of hands or whatever it is. Now, have you ever stopped in a signal when you see a trans person and have a conversation with them? A genuine conversation. If y'all, great, thanks,
That's
Shivangi. Right, I can see only Shivangi because I see only a list of a few people, but just answer that to yourself. The next time you all go ahead and meet a trans person on the streets, can you stop the vehicle for 2 minutes? Have a conversation. Just a conversation. They're not going to harass you. They're harassing you because, again, A lot of things, as what Nishant said, it's not that it doesn't happen. It does happen, right? There are a few, there always going to be good, bad, ugly apples in a basket. Now, yes, that becomes a point of conversation. But we also, when you say that trans people, now this is kind of brought a bad light on the trans people because, oh, in Vallur Kotam, they go ahead and harass people and all the men are being very scared. And this spreads out. Now, had it been women, then would the men would have liked it? If I have to ask, I'm not going to put that out there, but I'm just saying, then you would probably have a conversation, say, no, no, I'm not comfortable with this. Have you all voiced it out? When you don't like something, do we voice it out? No, we just take a step back or we run away from it. Can we face that, say that this is not right and I'm not liking this and what not? Yes, there are extreme incidences as well. I'm not going to deny that. But then can we at least take that step and say no? When you don't like something, can we say no to it openly? I think that is something that we also tell people, when there's a sexual harassment or somebody's harassing you sexually, can you stop and say no to something that's happening when you don't like it? Don't keep it inside your head, talk about it. So yeah, what can be done? There's lots. Like Nishanta said, reach out to him and he's going to take that forward.
Yeah. I think Jitendra has raised their hand. So Jitendra, over to you.
So it's interesting because that's the experiences that a lot of men share about Hijra community. So the idea is that you would see in railways, if you're traveling in public transport, when people come up and ask you for money, they're like, oh my God, I'm being harassed. Oh my God, oh my God, these scary people. These people are so scary, I can't do anything. And that's the kind of idea that has been perpetuated again and again. And that leads to a lot of physical and sexual violence on Hijra community because there is this idea that, oh my God, these are very scary people. Thank you, Suresh, for bringing out that if people have ever spoken to trans people on traffic or anywhere or in the journal life as well, I think it's really important to have a conversation and understand why you like scared of them. Like I think it's not the fear from the Hijra community, or I think it's the fear of many men with their own femininity because they see someone who is feminine. The many men, despise that. Oh, how dare you be like this? And I think while putting across such answers or such questions about Hijra community and saying that, these people sometimes they do dress up like that and for the sake of money, sometimes what happens is that these ideas they just perpetuate already existing wrong ideas about Hijra community. The reason that they come across very aggressive to you because people otherwise won't give them money. Then what is the difference? And they survive on begging, and begging is not like a bad job. It's like work for them. You stand on in the middle of the sun, and you need money for that. And I think that's very much there. People need to sort of like remove this idea that begging is bad. Begging is not bad. There are reasons why people do that. There are other aspects of it too as well, like how people are forced for begging and all that. But at the same time, when a community for the history, and we have a long history of Hijra community, relying on begging and relying on people's generosity, whether it's weddings, whether it's death, whether it's a baby's birth. So I think that's why we also need to be careful when we put across certain suggestions. Other than that, if the organization is facing, as Suresh has rightly pointed out, that go and speak to them that why this harassment is happening. They might not be. People just assume a fear. You would go, I would give this task statement. If you ever travel by train, you see the moment a Hijra person or a group of Hijra person would enter, you would see many men running to the washroom to hide. Right? They're like, oh my God, humko paise dene padenge, we need to now hide. And that's what people need to get over with these ideas. And this is the disconnect. We assume that Hijra people don't exist other than at traffic signals, other than in weddings, other than in childbirth. You would see Hijra and Transgender people existing everywhere. You just need to look around and see where there are existing. And I think that would increase, that would decrease a lot of fears from them. And I think once you do that, once you remove that fear, there'll be a larger inclusivity. And that I think will help us, many of us, to have a larger conversation on sexual harassment.
Right.
Because for them, even begging is sex work. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
begging is a kind of work.
Right.
You would see them many times, like in my experience, I've seen many times people harassing people on traffic signal. If they see a Hijra person, they would just like make some kind of remarks on them. And I think we need to bring up those conversations as well when we're talking about posh and when we're talking about why certain communities come across as fearful. Yeah, so that I wanted to bring out because I think it becomes really important to have this point put across as much as agreeing to the fact that sometimes they do happen, sometimes do people get scared. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Jitendra. I'm aware of the time, so I'm going to. I know Nishant has raised his hand and Anupriya has raised her hand. So I'm going to take these questions and I'm then going to ask Suresh to have his last thoughts, and then Shivangi. So Nishant, over to you. Yeah.
Sorry,
So,
Prerna, for cutting you.
Yeah.
Sorry, just 1 second. I was wondering if the guests have another 15 minutes.
I do.
Suresh, Nishant, Jitendra, are you fine for about 15 minutes?
sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. Thank you.
So great. Nishant, to you.
So I also wanted to add to Jitendra's points. So people who are begging on the street, right? They do not want to be aggressive. Like
Yeah.
just imagine you being at a signal for 8 hours and constantly being spoken to in a very bad way. People just look at you in a very very bad way. Everyone that you go around asking money also too, right? They also don't speak to you properly. Don't people don't even respond or look at you. So at the end of the day, what would you really feel and what would you really do? Is the question. There is nothing else that you can do. Aggression is your only form of letting it out, and
Right.
there is no other form of letting it out. Is what I feel.
Yeah, I think also to add to Nishant's point here, just think about this. Everything what Nishant said makes so much sense. And they are not there by, for whatever reasons, that generally you are there for begging, right? Just because for who you are and who you accept you are, the society throws you out, banishes you, but you need to survive. Nobody accepts you. Nobody wants to hire you because, as a housemaid in the organizations, what else do they have as a choice? When society has discarded them, they have to survive somewhere. And this is one of their means for no fault of theirs, just because they are not able, they are not aligned to the body that they're born with. So they transition to the body that, the person that they choose to be, and society discards them completely. And they have been pushed and resorted to this form, right? It is not that because they lost property or, somebody threw them away, but then this was also a different form of that. Think about it from a human perspective and understand. I know Vijay has mentioned that is it good to give them money? If you don't want to give them money, can you give them food? Can you help and support them? Can you ask them what is it that they need? Because you know that the trans community is really, really treated worse than anybody else. Can you ask them? Trust me, there are a lot of graduates also out there on the streets begging, and they're waiting for an opportunity. So yeah, I mean, that's all I had to say about that. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Suresh. I know Anupriya has raised her hand for quite a while. So Anupriya, up to you. Over to you.
Thank you, Prerna. Hi, everybody. I am Anupriya Avasthi. I am working with Care India as Manager HR and OD, looking after their talent acquisition, organization development, and L&D. So here I would like to share one observation on a positive note. Like it was mentioned by one of the panelists that if some person from LGBTQ community comes up with a complaint, then how many people will come forward and will support that individual in getting that complaint registered, and then some action to be taken in that person's favor from the community. So I would like to share here on a very positive note that on Instagram I have been attached with an individual from LGBTQ community, and she has created such a positive relationship with all the people who are attached with her, that she's such a positive individual, that we all have created a bond with her. So many times it happens that she comes up with a positive thoughts with a song she created about, she shares about the updates of her business, what she does, do because she is into into a business of manufacturing oil. She sells the packaged oil, so she is into a packaging business. So she keeps on sharing her positive positive experiences and creating positive vibes all around on Instagram. But whenever whenever she faces some kind of brunt or some kind of negative reaction from the people who are viewing her post, I mean, people are so insensitive that sometimes they write very negative things about her. अरे तुम क्या है, तुम तो सड़क पे निकल जाओ, 10 बार ताली बजा दोगे तो तुम्हारे पास पैसे, लोग पैसे फेंकते हुए आएंगे. So she gets very annoyed on that. And the positive part of this is that all the people who are attached with her on Instagram, they support her during her reactions. They come up, we all come up together, and we also try to stop that individual who has posted a wrong comment about her. So it's not like that people are not supportive. Society is not supportive towards this community. People are also now becoming aware. They are also becoming empathetic about these people. And my personal feeling about this individual, I won't like to take her name, but I find her such a positive individual that I make it a point that whenever I'm visiting Instagram, I'm visiting her posts. She follows Islam. She is so much regular in her 5 times. She what we say in Islam, that
Namaz.
5 baar ki namaz ata karna. She goes to various mazars. She goes to she does all the she will be keeping rozas. So she is such a nice individual, that I feel so motivated. And the kind of motivated words she spreads all across, she sometimes, motivates me also. Whenever I am thinking some negative thoughts because of my work pressure. So it's not that people are not sensitive towards this community. So I would like to share this. Yeah, I
Thank
know
you.
time
We've got to discuss it.
is constrained, but
Right.
I could not stop myself to give my views around this and share my emotions around this community. So
Thank
that's
you.
all from my side.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Anupriya. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm going to, I think, ask all my panelists any last words and thoughts, and then I'll ask Shivangi to, share her views. So,
All right. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Jitendra.
No, Suresh, you go ahead.
All right. So first and foremost, thank you so much, Prerna and Shivangi, for having this done, and to all the participants, the 30, I'm bad at math, 30 participants, yeah, including the 5, and people who are watching on YouTube. Thank you so much for taking this time and, learning about us, right? Whether you like it or not, now going forward, you'll have become allies of the community, right? So take the step forward. You'll have taken a couple of steps forward by being a part of this and learning. Be with an open mind. If you'll have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to help and support y'all in any form to make sure that y'all are taking the right decision by getting to know and understanding everything. So thank you. And yeah, you're all positivity, like how Anupriya said, that world is not a bad place. We have amazing people, and you all have shown that today as well, that you all are out there in support and wanting to bring a change to make the environment, our society, a lot more inclusive. So yeah, with that, thank you.
thanks, Suresh.
Yeah, I would like to say that 2 things. One is that people who have joined us today should also go back and read about LGBTQIA groups. I know it's really amazing what Anupriya shared, but also like good and bad people exist over the spectrum. You will find icon people, you will find bad people everywhere. So it's just about the conversation you will have with different people. You'll tend to find different people based on your experiences. I think conversation should continue and people should go and have that. And since you're an HR manager, Anupriya, I would like us, like you hire more LGBT persons. I'll always take this opportunity to advocate for them. Finally, thank you so much for organizing this conversation. And this conversation around sexual harassment at workplace should also continue with people getting to know about LGBTQI groups and the challenges. For example, a lot of misconception people would have that all Hijra persons are transgender. That's not true. All transgender people are Hijra person. That's also not true. Hijra person or a Hijra community is a separate group. It has a historical history with it. It's a very long history, and people can go and read about it. So these kind of ideas, people when they get to know about it. So the many ideas or many wrong myths that people have about that these are scary people roaming on road, waiting for you to give them money. It's not true. There are different things that true with communities as it is with any other community. So do have a read about it, and if you're a HR person, do hire more LGBT persons in your groups, have diversity and inclusion policies in your space, and also to talk about have conduct these trainings around LGBTQI issue, around challenges, around hiring, how to even interview a transgender person, how to interview a person from LGBT person, what question you should avoid, what are the different challenges that you might face. Organize this training with your own organizations, because I think the conversation then, if it doesn't have a momentum, it won't make sense to even have the conversation if it's just people listen and they agree to it, rather than implementing these conversations that had happened today, and bring them back to their organization. And lastly, thank you so much, Suresh and Nishant, for sharing your voices. It's really inspiring to see Suresh and Nishant sharing their work. I got to learn a lot today. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Nishant, any last words? Any last thing?
Yeah, I would like to thank Prerna and Shivangi for putting me onto this, especially because I got to learn a lot. And last thing that I would like to say is that um, if all of us just like do what is in our capacity, right? Um, say Prerna, you're hosting this session, right? You're doing what is in your capacity. So all of us are working professionals, most of us who have joined here, okay? And there will be some sort of capacity that we can also contribute, whether it'll just be like running a session or starting a dialogue with your leadership team, or anything that is in your capacity to push this agenda forward will be really, it goes a long way. Because if you hear about the butterfly effect, right, it starts by just one
Mm.
flap of the wing on one side of the world, okay, but it makes a huge difference to the other side. So that's the only thing that I think we need to focus on what we can do as individuals. And special thanks to Suresh and Jitendra, because I genuinely learned a lot. Not being a part of the LGBTQ community, I do not personally understand the challenges that being, but all these experiences that I have shared have been experiences that people from the community have shared with me. So thank you so much for again enlightening me on those aspects.
Great. Shivangi, I would want you to, share your thoughts.
Certainly. So,
Yeah.
thank you. I think this has been a power-packed discussion, and it's been really a great learning experience for me as well. We are running out of time. I would have loved to quickly summarize some of the learnings, but very broadly speaking, I think we talked about a lot from what the society does in a given situation, and I think all of us are responsible individually and collectively, or whether it's a university, whether it's a school, a family, it's an organization, whatever it may be, and we are not responsible for a particular gender only. And I don't think that sexual harassment also lives in some sort of an isolation. It's connected with what we feel and the kind of understanding that we have about each other. And ultimately, it is about the basic respect that we can offer to each other, and that is what is going to change things as well. In fact, when all of the guests were sharing the kind of biases that exist currently, I was constantly going back and thinking about how it was in the 1980s and 90s for women at that point in time. And where they would think that if I even utter a word that I was sexually harassed, either my job goes, my career goes, I am not going to be stepping out of my house, I'll be married, which still continues, but I think it has become much better thanks to movements like Me Too, etc. And I think that we are again at the same place with respect to all the other genders as well. Thankfully for women, as a woman myself today, I don't think I'll feel shy about saying that yes, something like this has happened to me. I'll feel confident enough to say it and not be judged. Whereas for the other genders, we are not in that same place right now. And I think a lot of work is required in that step. I'd just like to end by saying that, recently in a judgment, Madras High Court judge said, himself said that I am also trying to move away from my own perceptions and biases. And that's why I'm saying that this same-sex couple and the parents of this couple should go to a counselor who can help them out. And I think I really applaud this because, it really takes guts as a judge to come out and say something like that and really have the society also learn from it. I think everybody, then who reads it learns from that. So it's been really great. Thank you so much. I'd just like to end by saying that probably we need to get into more conversations and we'd like to trouble you again.
Yes. Yeah.
Just one last thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Prerna. I just want to say, I know that quite a few people have dropped off, but for all of you who are still here, Suresh supports an organization called Sangama. They were formed in 1999, and they talk about sexuality, sexual preferences, gender identity, etc. And they try to bring this in public discourse, something that is very important. They also try to do a lot of work during the lockdown to ensure that sex workers get provisions and groceries and that kind of support. And maybe I'll leave it to Suresh also to talk a little bit about it. I was trying to drop a message on the chat. Unfortunately, I was not able to. And I think I dropped the message to Suresh. I will just quickly drop the link as well on the chat as Suresh tells you a little bit more about the organization. But if you really feel for something like this, do contribute. And I think that is again going to help them, percolate in the society and help others out. So yeah, Suresh.
Right. No, so I've kind of sent that message to everybody on your behalf. So yeah, so it is just an organization or an NGO that I support because I feel that this is my way of giving back to my community and society for the betterment of them. So this is Sangama NGO, which is one of the oldest NGOs in Karnataka, more than 20 years old. So any help and support that y'all can provide, please do, because they work a lot on the community aspect and also from the society as such with regarding to donations. And you all know that COVID has played very badly, especially for the trans people as well, because they didn't get any opportunities of resource or relief, right? So we had to step in as common people and help and support them. So any donations will be really, really appreciated. So you can go down there to the link and do your donations. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Suresh, and thank you all our panelists and all the participants who've been here till it's 12:21 and you're still here. Thank you so much, because it just goes on to show how important this conversation has been. So thank you everybody for joining in and staying on for this conversation. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Yep. Stay safe
Bye.
and be healthy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Stay safe, wear a mask.